Okay, hello. This is the neuroscience lecture that I'm going to be talking about since I had to cancel last week. Everyone is welcome to watch this in preparation for exam 1, although for those of you guys who are in the lecture, this will be repeated information. Okay, so we're going to talk about neuroscience, or biopsychology as your book calls it, biologic basis of behavior. There's lots of different terms, but basically how the brain, some basic brain type things that we're going to learn about today. Okay, so we're going to start with the nervous system, the endocrine system, and the cells that make up our nervous system. So the human nervous system is divided into several different categories. Okay, so the first category breaking down of the nervous system is the central and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system is simply made up of our brain and our spinal cord. Okay, so it's pretty simple. Central nervous system, CNS, is the brain and spinal cord. The peripheral nervous system has some more complex breakdown system. It is the rest of our nervous system. It's outside of our brain and spinal cord, so it's all our nerves in our body, right? Okay, so those breakdowns are the somatic and then the autonomic nervous system. Okay, the somatic nervous system is the control of your body that you have voluntarily. So me talking right now, bouncing on this exercise ball, moving my fingers to right, those are all the result of our somatic nervous system. Okay, and then the autonomic nervous system is responsible for those automatic processes that happen in our body. Okay, so think about your heart beating, your breathing, if you begin sweating, those are all automatic processes that happen. That's our autonomic nervous system. And you break the autonomic nervous system into two smaller categories, and those are the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is also known as fight or flight. So our fight or flight response is the sympathetic nervous system. Okay, it's what activates your body to respond to a threat. And then the parasympathetic nervous system is what is called rest and digest. It's going to calm your body after you have dealt with whatever the threat is. Okay, so sympathetic, fight or flight, parasympathetic, calm, rest and digest. Okay, so within the central nervous system, we've got the brain and the spinal cord. The brain is obviously the control center for the entire nervous system, right? It's very important for us to have brains. The spinal cord also has its own role besides just holding your back up. Your spinal cord receives sensory information from your peripheral nervous system, from your senses, and it sends motor commands out to the nerves that are necessary for for you to move your body. So those motor commands. It also provides for spinal reflexes. So there are some reflexes that we have as humans that actually don't even go all the way up to the level of the brain. Your spinal cord actually responds. And so a pain reflex is actually one of those. So many times you maybe have experienced, if you've been burned before, if you touch something that's burned that will burn you, you might find that you've already withdrawn your hand before you even realize what's happened. And that's because your spinal cord reflex got there and you pulled your hand back before you even knew consciously in your brain what was happening. So let's talk more about the peripheral nervous system, because we're going to talk about the brain by itself for a while in a minute. So the peripheral nervous system connects our central nervous system to the rest of our body. The peripheral nervous system contains two systems, like I said, the somatic and the autonomic nervous systems. Somatic is voluntary movements. Autonomic is automatic, okay? Automatic things that we have. And the automatic nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, has the branches of parasympathetic and sympathetic. Remember that sympathetic is fight and flight, parasympathetic is rest and digest. So here's where I would, if you were in class with me, I would have slammed a book down and startled you all. And when that happens, when you respond, your body responds to a loud noise, your sympathetic nervous system is activated. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, let me tell you what it means. When the sympathetic nervous system gets activated, your eyes, your pupils dilate. They dilate in order to let more light in so that you can see better. Your salivary glands are put on pause. You don't need to be salivating. That's part of your digestive system. Your digestive system is completely shut down when your sympathetic nervous system is activated. So your salivary glands, your stomach, your liver, or your kidneys rather, and your intestines, you're not going to be engaging in that eating or digesting process when your sympathetic nervous system is activated. You are going to have an increased heart rate. The bronchi in your lungs are going to dilate to get more oxygen into your body. Your liver is going to stimulate glucose, so quick sugar energy so that you can have energy to face the tiger that's now in your environment. And your kidneys are going to stimulate epinephrine and norepinephrine, also known as adrenaline. Okay. So those things are all going to happen with your sympathetic nervous system. Once you have faced the threat, once you have run away from the tiger or fought it and it's dead or whatever, then your parasympathetic nervous system is going to kick in. Your pupils will constrict. You don't need more light in there. Your salivary glands get back to work. Your heart slows down, your lungs constrict, your bronchi in your lungs. Your stomach stimulates digestion. The liver stimulates bile, which is going to help with that digestion and GI stuff. And you're going to be more calm after that. Okay, so those are the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. You should be able to differentiate those for the exam. So the endocrine system, also known as the glandular system, what you guys need to know is that the endocrine system is not part of the nervous system, but it works with the autonomic nervous system when responding to stress. It also plays a role in basic behaviors and bodily functions. So the endocrine system plays a role in basic behaviors and bodily functions. That's what you need to know for the exam, okay? Basic behavior and bodily function. Also, you can know, or you probably know a lot about some of the glands that are included in the endocrine system, and that'll help you say, oh yeah, okay, the glands, basic behaviors, and bodily functions. So let's look at what those are. Glands secrete hormones, yep. So the components of the endocrine system are the pituitary gland, the thyroid gland, the adrenal glands, pancreas, ovaries, and testes. Okay, the hypothalamus is the brain structure that controls the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is considered the primary gland or the master gland. It sends signals to other glands in the body. Okay, and again, the endocrine system, basic behavior and bodily functions. Okay, and it's made up of glands. The nervous system, so we're moving away from the endocrine system into the nervous system. The nervous system is made up of two different types of cells. Okay, those are neurons and glial cells. The picture is a neuron. Okay, glial cells for a long time were misunderstood. We didn't really understand what they were. That they're called glial because originally they thought they were the glue that held the system together. That's not true. They have a really important support functions. But with neurons are really the main cells in the nervous system because they're the ones that transmit signals. Okay. So neurons are nerve cells. They're the basic building blocks of the nervous system. Basically, neuronal communication among our neurons is the only reason we have any behavior or mental processes. Glial cells, we didn't think that glial cells did anything. That's not true. We know that glial cells perform very important functions. There are 10 times more glial cells in the brain. Without glial cells, our neurons wouldn't work properly. They serve important support functions, but I'm not going to test you on those functions because that's just a little too in-depth for this class. So, 3 primary types of neurons: sensory, motor, and interneurons. Sensory neurons bring sensory signals from our peripheral nervous system into our brains. Motor neurons take motor signals from our brain to our muscles so that we move, motor. And then interneurons are those that are simply connected within each other. So there's a crap ton of interneurons in our brains. Okay. So you need to know the structure of the neuron and the function of each structure, okay? So all neurons have the following major components: a cell body or a soma, dendrites, axon terminals. This is a prototypical, or just like a picture of a neuron that we use. Not all neurons look exactly like this, but this is the one you'll probably see most frequently. So you can see the cell body, that's where the nucleus is, okay? You can also see the dendrites. The dendrites are the branch-like projections off of the cell body. So dendrites receive information from other neurons, okay? Dendrites receive information from other neurons. That information is accumulated in the cell body. So we add up all the signals that we're getting from the dendrites. The cell body adds it all up and then decides whether or not it's going to fire. So then we have the axon. Okay, the axon is the long branch, or I guess long arm from the cell body all the way to the terminal buttons, are the terminal axon terminals. Okay, this is where the signal is, an electrical signal passes through here, and then once it reaches the end, neurochemicals called neurotransmitters are released from here, from the terminal buttons. Okay, these little, I don't even know what you call that, cylindrical type things are myelin sheath. Okay, these are made up of glial cells, and they help speed up the neural impulses. So basically, the electrical impulse, if there's no myelin, it has to go basically really a bunch of little tiny jumps down the axon. If there's myelin, the signal can jump into these basically from one gap to the next, and it doesn't have to travel or jump as many times, so it gets to the end more quickly. So it makes our cells more efficient to have that myelin sheath. Okay, so again, you need to know each of these structures and what they do. So how do neurons communicate? Well, there are two types of communication for neurons. The first is electrical and the second is chemical. Okay, so within the neuron, so information within the neuron is electrical. What does that mean? Well, it means that the action potential, or the electrical firing of a neuron, is electrical. Chemical communication is what occurs between neurons. So remember I was talking about the neurochemicals called neurotransmitters. Those are how neurons communicate with another neuron. So between neurons it's chemical, within neurons it's electrical. So let's talk about within neurons first. Let's put all this up. Resting potential is when a neuron is just hanging out, sitting there. The electrical signal is called an action potential. You guys have probably heard of this before, but the action potential is that electrical impulse that fires down the axon. Okay, an action potential is all or none. So action potentials have equal intensity and speed regardless of stimuli intensity. As information comes from the dendrites into the cell body, it can be either excitatory or inhibitory. That means that it can either increase the likelihood of the neuron firing or decrease. So that's excitatory, increase; inhibitory, decrease the likelihood of that neuron firing. Okay. And then chemical communication between neurons begins at the axon terminals. Okay. The neurochemicals called neurotransmitters are contained in the axon terminals. They are then released and sent to another neuron. They bind to the receiving neuron on the dendrites, and then those in turn influence whether the next neuron will generate an action potential. Okay,